Today we're driving the all-new Mazda CX-80, which is, so to speak, the long wheelbase of the CX-60 that is sold in the European market. And this is also the brother model to the CX-90 and the CX-70 that is sold on the Northern American market. We'll take a deeper look and also solve the question, since this one here tries to be more premium, maybe like a Japanese BMW, does it also work from the interior quality and also driving-wise especially? We'll find out with Thomas Nautigefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with an impressive front grille here in the high gloss black version. This looks pretty cool, definitely. Optional matrix LED. You can also see them right here. This color here is platinum quartz, a very cool color. Brings some bright atmosphere, and from the exterior it looks definitely premium. We can all agree definitely that Mazda has taken a big leap forward from exterior, interior and so on. But of course we're going to examine that in detail. You get 20-inch wheels as standard here then in the black style, but you can of course get a brighter style. Length is 5 meters or 197 inches. That's 25 centimeters or 10 inches longer than the CX-60, which almost all goes into the wheelbase, because this is here the 6 or 7-seater version, whereas the CX-60 is only the 5-seater. And the CX-90 and the CX-70 that is available on Northern American market, they are more or less the same. They're even a little bit longer in the rear than this one here, but more or less they are the same, not too big differences. And the thing is, I think on the European market, the strategy is a little bit more logical because CX-60 and CX-80 have different sizes. In the Northern American market, the CX-70 and the CX-90, they are basically the same size, just that the CX-90 has the 7 seats or the 6 seat, and the CX-70 has like a 6 and 7 seat delete, so to speak. And towards the rear, here horizontal integration of these tail lamps. CX-80 in this case, all-wheel drive, always has a rear wheel bias. And the thing is that all the big new Mazda SUVs, they look kind of similar in the rear, and there's no job for the Autogefühl fake exhaust police, rather clean design. I have to say though that here the turning indicators in the rear are too tiny, especially for such a large vehicle. How are you supposed to see that properly? Turning indicators in the front, they're actually quite nicey, and also this pulsing effect. Yeah, you're right, BMW is using that now as well. Key fob here, yeah, so simple black things, not too premium honestly. Door closing, and first of all the door handles here. That's a problem that Mazda has, also some other Japanese brands. They don't pay attention to that, so it always sounds really loud. Door closing in the front isn't too bad though. And to the rear, let's check it out. Yeah, it's almost the same, just here again, there's no, as if there would be no dampening material on the inside, you know, so maybe they can fix that a little. It's not a big thing though. Then here, inside of the doors, top part is somewhat structured and also, let's say, a little bit softened up, but just a little bit. Then you have here the dark insets for today. Classic window levers, so easy to control everything, also of the side mirrors. Hard pack at the inside of the doors though. Then it's also here in the dark interior styling. I like that we still have real buttons on the steering wheel. Also a nice size, and here for the volume, for example, right side would be then for the cruise control, the buttons to adjust the speed. Seats in Europe is the base seat. You would also get a fabric seat, which I recommend. In the US, you would also get a full leatherette seat for the CX-90. This here, however, the optional animal skin equipment, and in the high trims, they go animal skin only. So they don't give any alternative to the customer who loves animals. And then here, with 189, 602, enough headroom left. This is also a real panoramic roof. You can also apply a shade when the ignition is on, so when it's really like for hot days and so on. There we go. You still have like a real button for that. And then there's this black shade coming from the rear. So at the moment, of course, we don't need it. Steering wheel adjustment here, electrically, up and down, in and out, also electric seats. And yeah, so the seat ergonomics in the front are actually quite decent. So it's a full grown-up SUV position. And there's also an interesting mechanism here in this vehicle. So if you don't know how to adjust your seat, you have a so-called driver personalization system. And then I can add a new driver and actually do this. So here I can select my height, and for example, if I have the seat and the steering at the most ridiculous position, for example, like this, maybe all the way in, seat all the way up, and yeah, or maybe then the seat all the way to the steering wheel, so the way I could not drive at all, just to show you then like the main difference. Now I have to not squish myself. So here then start, and then actually the car is adjusting the seating position for you, what the car is thinking would be the most ideal one for your body size. Let's see how that one turns out and if it's the correct one. And if I'm freed out of my being squished in position, yeah, now finally. So that should actually go down with the seat as well. Of course, takes a while always. I'm looking forward to if I would actually agree with the vehicle on that one. This is better here. Now the steering wheel should also come down to me a little bit, also comes towards me. There we go. That's it. So this is what the vehicle would suggest, but I feel it's a little bit too far here from like the angle of the steering wheel and so on and of the seat. So what I actually do is I would put the steering wheel a little bit more downwards and more all the way upward, go a little bit forward with the seat like this. So yeah, I think this is a little bit better, maybe like this. So it came close, let's take it that way. Cockpit overview here with the horizontal stress. The glove box is also properly dampened like that. And then we have this large screen at 12.3 inch. It's fairly easy to control, not via touch here though. So this is then all done with the lower control unit. It is, however, a difference if I have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. I'll soon show you then the difference. Then here, this is quite cool, still manual climate unit, physical buttons, easy to press. I do appreciate it. Also your single buttons here for the heating and cooling control. This works when the engine is running. Then in the front you have inductive charging pad. Phone does overheat though, it's not cooled. Drive selector is right here, also with nice clicking sounds. And and then here, cup holders, adaptive. This is actually quite good quality here. What I don't really understand is here they have this step system for the automatic shift lever. To me, a little bit too complicated. Why just not put it in one straight line? I think it would be more modern. Then this is in here, once again with nice clicking sounds, like you would control also the touch screen, the non-touch screen. Well, it depends. It is a touch screen from general thought, but it is deactivated in the Mazda menu. That's the way. And this is the way. And here, you can slide this one open. A lot of space then, 2 USB-C chargers. Yeah, it's a really large middle console. And on the steering wheel, I also have shifting pedals, by the way, in this case for the gears, and also large digital instruments. Driver POV. Here, once again, nice buttons at the steering wheel. And then, oh, this was some radio now. Here we go. Then the instruments, they are digital, although they look analog, but I think it's actually a cool choice. And then you can also switch some things on the right side there. You also get a head-up display. Right there, it's always appearing bigger in real life than it does on camera. Then here, interesting with the infotainment system, as I said, the master menu only with the control from below. Then you can have this, just press it down and you can go to the Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. Here, there we go. And this is done here via touch. So that works. And if you also want it via touch while the vehicle is in motion, you have to activate that feature then in the infotainment system. Rear seats here and the rear doors. This is pretty cool. This almost opens 90 degrees. So good access for child seats, ISOFIX on the outside. We also have this cover right here. Nice sun cover, manual. Inside of the doors here, the lower part is all hard pack though. And then we are kind of flexible here with the seats. So there we go. Goes front and back, and this is then the lever here to change the inclination or also to fold the seats completely. The quality here, once again here of the lever, for example, is just mediocre, really have to say that. Then we have here, you can fold this down. This actually lies on the seat. Then here, this is some rubber lip here to be a little bit adaptive. And the seating comfort is actually quite decent. It's not too much legroom here when I'm driving here with 189, 6 for 2. And headroom, this works then. And here we can also see more of this panoramic roof, which you can actually also really open. This is also still rare now because everyone goes for fixed glass roofs and so on. But you see here the opening is minimal. So in this case, probably you can also just leave it out and go for the fixed closed groove actually. Then also here, then the 2/3, you can also slide it forward and backward. And we also have a big middle tunnel here, classic all-wheel drive system. And here the climate unit, seat heating would be working when the engine is actually running, and 2 USB-C chargers. Then I said here the inclination can also be put all the way back. So this is then more or less the sleeping position. We also have the handles here on the top part. They're also damped, so they go back really smoothly. And then, of course, interesting, the access to the 3rd seating row. So that's why you would put this top lever here, also in the 1/3, 2/3 split. There we go. But now to give you a realistic impression of what's happening in the 3rd row, I have to keep the 2nd seating row on my side here like it is now. So I pushed it in that way that it can still sit here as a tall adult. But then the question is, what do I have for space in the rear? Because otherwise, when I would put it forward like this and then backward again, it would stop at some point, you know, like here. And then there's space in the 3rd row, but there's hardly any space in the 2nd row anymore. So that's why I left here the 2/3 on this side like it is right now. And now I come to your side and get in there. Because then we can see here, when the 2nd seating row is in the way that I could still sit there, I hardly have any space left here in the 3rd seating row. So nothing for tall adults. Headroom is okay actually. So from the height it's okay, but not from the legs. I have to squeeze myself in there. There's no isofix on the 3rd row. So the question is then for what or for whom? So can't be as little as a child, can't be an adult. So it must be something in between, yeah, if you're not that tall, or like young children who are not that tall yet, but not too small. Because the child is something in between. And you have some nice features here as well. You have own cup holders, you have USB-C charger on both sides, and also an own climate vent, like here, for example. And then you can also turn it left and right. Maximum of 2.5 tons towing, and the trunk here. First of all, electric hatch. Let's find out all the flexibility. First of all, here behind the 3rd seating row, there's a cabin trolley. Of course, easily still fits in. And then here the width is about 1.10 m or 43 inches. This is here a meter or 40 inches. And the length, 3rd seating row, is 46 centimeters, 18 inches. So in here then, I can fold the 3rd seating row down. There we go. Then you have 690 liters of boot space, and a length of about 1.15 m or 45 inches. The height here, by the way, also quite notable at 75 centimeters or almost 30 inches. So that's actually very cool. What's also nice here underneath, there is this cover stored. This is all a little bit just loosely attached. Not sure. We gotta listen if it flies around while driving or something like that. But I think it's cool stuff here that you can easily store that underneath. And then here we can reach in there. Then you might think first, this doesn't really fit, like what is this? But there's actually a secret to it. So there's a button here like that, and when you press this one, then it comes a little bit outwards. Same here, to press a little bit in, press the button, there we go. And then it's probably attached on both sides, and then we can slide it here. This is in the cover for the 3rd row basically. And this mechanism here also easily lets you put it in again, click and click, there we go. And then it's shorter once again. But then if you want to fold the seats, you cannot do it from here, because then you have to grab over here. But this is not the folding mechanism, but this is this mechanism that can get in the 3rd seating row. So you have to actually go around then to fold the seats. So this is not how it works. To use the lever in the lower part, there we go. And then you can extend it here to the full length. And that is actually here over 2 meters or yeah, like 79 inches, pretty good. And so this vehicle has a very attractive low price, and then you also have to live with stuff like that, you know. So this is not really like well thought through. Or for example here, like this, also look at how loose it is at the back part of the seat. So it always depends. You might say like, hey, I don't care. I rather care that this is half the price of a BMW. So, and others might think, hey, I want a premium vehicle, but then I don't want that. So it's not that you would say this is the worst thing ever happened. It's just a perspective. What price are you willing to pay for perfection or these kind of imperfections? Well, since I'm a kid of the 90s, I can't help myself. Greetings to Arnold. Hasta la vista, baby. Under the hood, important engine here for the European market will be this one here, the inline 6-cylinder. This is the diesel engine, 3.3 liter, around 250 horsepower, 8.4 seconds in the acceleration figure, standard all-wheel drive. You can also get a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder plug-in hybrid, but at 14.5 kilowatt hours net battery, this is a rather small battery for a plug-in hybrid of that size here. On the Northern American market for the CX-90 and CX-70, you can also get a 3.3 liter turbo petrol 6-cylinder. Sport mode. Oh. That was 45 to 80 kilometers an hour. Good response here from the 6-cylinder, so it's, yeah, that we can drive a Mazda 6-cylinder is kind of unusual, especially here in Europe, for example. So they haven't had it for a long time actually, and you start with this diesel engine here and hear this typical diesel rattling sound. So it sounds like an old school diesel, definitely. The effect is way stronger when it's stationary and you're driving really slow. When you're driving here on the motorway, then it kind of dissolves into the rest of the noise and it's not such a problem actually. And we'll also see at the end of the review what we can score as for the fuel economy for today, for example. But performance-wise, you know, it makes a decent impression already here. Here we can also do some lane changes at 80 kilometers an hour, like 50 miles an hour, and yeah, that's actually quite nice. It doesn't feel super sporty. That's also not the main goal of this vehicle, but I feel that they refined it a little bit if we compare it to very, very early tests with the CX-60. Although this one here is the one with the longer wheelbase. But funnily, I have the feeling that this would do well to the vehicle. It brings a little bit more calmness actually to the vehicle when you have like a little bit longer wheelbase. At the same time, I don't feel that it would have a negative effect on the driving agility of this vehicle, which is yeah, kind of astonishing. Also always important if you have the pure combustion engine or the plug-in hybrid. In our test with the CX-60, it always felt like the additional weight and also the transitions between the different drivetrains of the plug-in hybrid system is something they haven't mastered that well yet. So I would, in this case, most cases at least, rather trust on the diesel or the pure turbo petrol, and when you get that one for the CX-90 or CX-70 then on the US market. Noise insulation so far actually quite nice. We'll also test it once again when we are at higher speeds later on. You know, when we're a little bit just slower and then you hear this diesel sound quite notably. By the way, that you have some beepings here and there is also somewhat typical for the vehicle. A lot of beep sounds, yeah, for different situations you are in. I was in the sport mode, as I said. You can also go to the normal mode. It's more fuel saving, and the RPMs are not pre-tuned that much. Once again, something beeps here and there. Let's do another acceleration from a standstill. Here we go. Oh, that was already a little bit more than 60. Really nice acceleration from standstill. There you feel like this raw torque of the large diesel engine, so that is very pleasing. And also you saw the all-wheel drive, more power sent to the rear wheels, classic all-wheel drive system, rear wheel bias, and also how calm the steering remained, although it was interesting. Look at that. That's a fleet of Audi Q6 e-tron. It's like with like 10 or something. Interesting. Yeah, got it all on camera. So actually really nice acceleration. I mean, the figure of 8.4 seconds doesn't sound so quick actually on paper, but it feels, oh, even more. Oh, interesting. How many are these? Like 20 or something? Enjoy, guys. So, but here we're driving the diesel. So I feel it's a very good engine from the performance perspective. As I said, noise insulation-wise, at lower speeds could be a little bit better. Later on, I'm really looking forward to the final consumption. You know, back in normal mode, it's a little bit more relaxed. I like the steering input. It's really precise, actually, so there's no dead zone area. Also to the sides, really fine reactions. I really liked it. Now we get onto the German Autobahn. let's see how it behaves then when you get on there. Suspension-wise, you do have independent rear axle, double wishbone in the front, so good on paper. And so far, so good actually. So feels like a good balance. Also not too rough with these 20-inch wheels and so on. I'll also go to the sport mode once again. Now we're getting onto the motorway and I'll look at how the angle of the steering wheel turns. Of course, it does have still some weight, pushes me a little bit into the corner. But nice here how I can really steer that one in and out of the corners. Very good reaction from the steering wheel and also nice response from the throttle there. Yeah, when you get over some bumps like these, you know, when they go across the road, then you do feel that the suspension is not that forgiving. Now some 70 to 120. There we go. Once again, nice performance. And then also the sound is actually quite decent. Now some motorway style. So this one is like not the most even motorway, and now we feel it's a little bit bumpy there. So it's not this really sophisticated adaptive suspension, which we would have, for example, in premium competitors of this one. And that is something you do feel there. So as long as the road is nice and even, it's good. But when it gets a little bit rougher here, the road is maybe not that perfect. Yeah, then you feel that the suspension is also not like on a super high premium level. Let's take it that way. Lane change here at 120 kilometers an hour. It's nice. It shakes up a little bit. I mean, it's also a large vehicle, but there you see that the suspension, it is on the one hand set to a rather soft tone, but on the other hand, you also feel these bumps in the road. So yeah, I would say not really that perfectly tuned, maybe like that. But that's again talking about the price. Considering what entry price this vehicle has is really good, you know. So it's just again when you really say, hey, they have made such long, like such a good development so on. Can we maybe compare it to premium competitors? Then you feel that there are still a lot of differences, and you see where this price difference actually happens from. You know what I mean? But overall, considering the price, it's still a decent result. Here, 120 kilometers an hour, like 70 miles an hour. Road noise is also picking up. Wind noise, actually not that much. It's more, I feel, the road noise that is a little bit higher. It is rather silent here on this head area. This is also something that Mazda has been focusing on when they do their noise installations. That they say we try to insulate, especially in areas which is, you know, like very much conceivable for your ear. But you feel that in the lower area with the tire noise and so on, this is a little bit more. So definitely also here something, the noise insulation, that is also more silent than in premium vehicles, for example. So yes, you do feel differences, but I really have to say that when you compare the CX-80 to the CX-60 now, that I actually prefer this one here in driving. And this is a surprising result to me. Somehow the long wheelbase does well to the vehicle. That is very interesting. Also speaks in again for the CX-90 or CX-70. We can accelerate out now, 122. 170. Now it's getting really loud. Woo! Yeah, give me that 6-cylinder power. So it's almost 200. I have to cancel it here now. Yeah, but still, performance-wise, of course, the faster it gets, the less we have than actually in the acceleration. But yeah, really loud here now. So it's not meant to be driven super quick, super fast on the German Autobahn. So here, 160 kilometers an hour is not a pleasant travel speed. Let's take it that way. But the engine feels actually really nice there. See how it behaves when I do lane change here quickly. There the suspension also doesn't give you like the best contact feeling to the road. Let's take it that way. So yeah, definitely what I take from this driving part is that I feel it drives better than the CX-60 somehow. Maybe, yeah, and the long wheelbase rather does the vehicle very well. Suspension is okay, decent, but nothing special, and definitely in driving dynamics, suspension-wise, and also as for the noise insulation, it is not a premium car. And my most favorite feature is really the steering input. That is something they have really achieved very well. This also because I've always been saying the CX-5 drives so great. The steering feel, that is something that is kind of on par with the other Mazda experience we had so far. So fun in steering, definitely. But of course, considering the size and the purpose of this vehicle, not the most fun vehicle overall. Let's take it that way. Pricing, 55,000 euros in Germany, for example, for a plug-in hybrid entry version. Then here the diesel at 59,000 euros. So the diesel is actually more expensive than the plug-in hybrid. Pretty interesting, isn't it? And as it stands right here, like high trim and so on, you can spec it up to about like 68,000 euros, something like that. Not cheap, however. And then the US prices, or the North American prices, are even more interesting. 38,000 euros in the entry. And then what is here the entry price in Germany is the high trim level price, like 55,000 euros for a highly spec'd vehicle. So definitely more attractive the prices you have in North America. Yes, you have to add the VAT on these prices there, but definitely here they rather try to push like the high trim models and so on. So it's definitely way less expensive than the premium models. So Mazda has made a lot of progress, but I would not actually really compare it to a BMW. This case would be more like a X5, X7 and so on. But I think that so many small details are actually missing to make it really premium. Then again, you still pay so much less money for it. The big difference to a premium vehicle is the driving part. It does not catch up in driving fun and also in the dynamics and the agility. Also not internally to Mazda, because the Mazda CX-5, the smaller SUV, is so much fun to drive, and the big Mazdas, I think that is missing with these larger ones, that they're not as much fun to drive. You can now compare the CX-60 we have on our channel or also the CX-5.